GlobalFoundries had earnings, Pat, and this is kind of their earnings sort of summed up the quarter. And I mean this like let me base this down. I've spent a lot of time sort of analyzing all the tech company earnings this quarter, but they beat on the revenue, they beat on the earnings number, and then they provided sort of what was just an okay guide. Like, I think they were mixed. I think it was okay on revenue, or it was light on earnings, or one way or the other there. Hold on, let me pull up my tweet just to verify which side of the equation that was on. But it was solid. So yeah, the guide was basically a beat on top and they missed on the bottom. So this was the kind of the quarter, Pat. It was like, Amazon sort of a little bit soft guidance, but had pretty good numbers. Microsoft missed on one thing with its Azure number. And, you go back through it, it's like everybody had a pretty good result, but just had something that was imperfect. And I don't know if everybody remembers Monday from this week. It looked like the world was going to end in the morning. Pat was desperately trying to log on to his E-Trade account, and he was trying to move in hordes of cash from his reserves into it to try to buy in what looked like Armageddon. Pat could neither log in or get the money moved. But the point is like, it literally, by the way, TMI, I don't know. I'm not sharing any more details than that, but it literally did look. I mean, that morning, like, I was like ghostly. You were like trying to get online. I'm pretty sure I'd never seen you get onto a chatbot hotline to try to like money, mother, and so but it was like 24 hours later, it's like everything's fine. Like that, by the way, it says everything about how fast this world moves. Like,
I know
people were comparing it to like 1987, like the Black Friday of
VIX. VIX was like, Lehman crash, COVID, right?
And dot bomb.
Yeah.
It was
and that one day we had like 12 hours, right?
It was super weird. It went from 20 to almost like 65. And then it's already back at like under 20 again. There was this carry trade unwinding. It was cast. Anyways, this has not a lot to do, but it was just really funny because it just goes to kind of show the fragility that we have in our market right now. It is super fragile. Every certain economic report, everything the Fed says. So point is, it's kind of hard to tell right now how much of these kind of the way the market's reacting to things. But back to GlobalFoundries, I mean, look, this is a company that doesn't get as much attention in all the chip chat that we've got going on, basically because what they're just doing is they're just busy manufacturing all the chips that surround all the really super cool leading edge stuff that we use in IoT and in comms and in devices and in PCs and in compute. And it's just the stuff that we just can't actually build any of this without. But it's not 3 nanometer. It tends to be everything above 14 and often much higher than that. And that's what they like to call essential nodes. The press likes to call it lagging or, older or legacy nodes. But they continue to do good work under Thomas Caulfield. Thomas has been on the 6.5 a few times. And by the way, Pat, just a couple segment notes. I mean, they had good growth in automotive, which is interesting. We saw Qualcomm had some great automotive growth as well. But Tesla's numbers weren't great. So it's kind of like, not exactly sure. But I think it's all about more content in every vehicle. Whether or not if the production numbers start to really grow, that's going to be even better for these companies. And then, of course, smart handsets are still kind of on the decline, which is interesting because we keep hearing about this upcoming super boom cycle, which I think you and I both agree is probably more of a 25 thing than a 24 thing. But it's these are important overall nodes. But Pat, they're it was a good quarter. It's kind of like they're stable, steady, strong, important company. But they are really dependent on this smart mobile device. So, almost half the revenue comes from that space. And so when that starts to grow and that starts to boom, there is a very strong opportunity that GlobalFoundries growth will follow with that.
Good stuff, man. I guess some adders for me. So what I always like to do is look at, is it a company thing? Is it a market thing? Is it somewhere else? And this is clearly a market thing. You had mentioned it, but if you look at most of the chip makers in the embedded space, they are not doing well. And it's really about this massive inventory glut. If you remember, we couldn't get 12-cent controllers for $250,000 BMWs. because you couldn't ship the radio. And then everybody doubled down and went wild over buying. And whether it's TI, whether it's on semiconductor, whether it's synaptics, going through that glut. And there are even consumer IoT markets that are even the demand for those devices has ebbed big time. And in the enterprise, the AI budgets have overcome the edge, right? The intelligent edge, call it the industrial IoT, and those went away. And interest rates went up, and the overall auto market went down. I think the only auto play that had an increase was Qualcomm, right? They're taking share, and they're also in a lot of the newer models with self driving. But it's a very tough market. And when it so with to make a long story longer, GlobalFoundries, right? They read like the market. Okay, IoT and comms were down. I mean, comms infrastructure has been in the dumps for a long time. I mean, look at the performance of the key infrastructure players in the telco market. There was this massive surge in 5G, advanced 5G, and then it has stalled a bit as the carriers chew through that capex. Automotive was a bright spot in the end at 10% growth, which was great. And just on the smartphone side, GlobalFoundries, right? It's not about the AP, it's about the RF that they're engaged in, and there have been some machinations there, big time Chinese growth. I don't believe that they are a big supplier to those RF folks that go into China. Tepid smartphone market now, and your point on AI smartphones. What I said back in January is we would start to see the beginning of it, and we saw Apple's hand in what they do, and and their stock pop looked pretty good, and you have to have an iPhone 15 Max Pro Max for it to be able to work. I still believe if Apple hits its dates, which is slipping, it looks like, from September to October, we could see the beginning of that. I'm also very bullish on Qualcomm's new APs coming out, which not only give the boost to our Orion Core, but also give a big AI boost as well. So that'll be Qualcomm's second generation of AI smartphones, and I think China is going to absolutely devour those chips. And again, I don't necessarily know how well GlobalFoundries is aligned for that China smartphone pop, kind of given their performance here. But we're gonna have to see.
Yeah. I mean, look, that's some good extra bits and dives on that one. By the way, that's why you watch the show, right? Because we go where the typical coverage never does. We dive into the weeds. We get into the thick of it. We get into the thick of it. I mean, dude, you just did like a 15-minute diatribe on CXL. You should start writing for a Nantech.
I mean, I did a little research, but like you, I mean, I've been on advisory calls on when CXL Consortium first started. I mean, they were hitting me up for stuff and feedback, and I knew all the players who were in there, and I've been on standards boards before, and the good, bad, and the ugly of how this moves forward. And it's funny, go to the hyperscaler friends, and they're like, CXL, nah. But no, it just costs too much. But I think we're going to see it at Meta and AWS.
Stuff like that always can get fixed over time. Costs tend to normalize or even come down. I mean, look at what's happened to compute and memory and storage and everything else. It just, it comes down and it gets more powerful. Anyways, what do we call it? Moorehead's law?
Moore law? Yeah, there was a Moore's law out there once.
I like that. Moorehead's law. We start new laws on this show, everybody. You got to stick with us. It gets better.